Hi friends, it's Becky, and I wanted to make a little jewelry set using some things that I found at the sister site for bargain bead box, Bead Box Bargains. Now, some of these things may have sold out already, but when they're really popular things, or really cool things like these little fish guys, sometimes they make an effort to restock them. So, the first thing that is really cool that I wanted to share and make with are these SPC 1247 fish guys. It's a little puzzle where you figure out how to piece together this little fish in such a way that you can turn it into like a pendant, or I think actually this guy goes here. I'm going to be doing this with as a kind of the centerpiece of a necklace for this. So it's going to be across that, and then we'll do some things up the sides using some of these other beads and these spacers. We've got a little swirl on this guy right there, and I thought that these look like little swirls and waves and that sort of thing. These are SPC 1684, and they're just these square metal beads that will make really excellent spacers and accent pieces for parts of that. And then I have two smaller versions, SPC 1803. This was a packet of two, and they're just these smaller versions that we're going to be making into some earrings. So we'll move them out of the way until we get to that part of this thing. And then I thought I would use these little goldfish spacer. This is 1452 beads for a bracelet. So we'll be doing a little bit of bracelet-y things with these guys. They're just these little goldfish spacers. So that's what my project is going to be today. In addition to those metal pieces, I have this strand of 4mm faceted, feels like agate, but we've got some warm tones in here. So I thought those would be kind of like goldfishy kind of tones with like some silvery scales and some redder scales. And that would be a good bead to use with this. And we're going to be accenting it with these crystal mix beads. And amongst these we've got some clear aqua, we've got some opaque light blue, we've got some that are kind of a half and half with kind of an orangey gold and then light blue on the other side. So these are going to be how we're going to bring in some oceany tones and vibes to this, but I'm also bringing oceany tones by using some turquoise color beading wire to string all of this. I've got some 2x2 crimp tubes, got some ear wires, and I've got my tools. I've got some chain nose pliers, some round nose pliers, and where's my crimper? I literally just had that. There it is. I've got my magical crimper. It's my favorite way of crimping. So I'm going to be making these with y'all today. Alright, so let's figure out how we want this necklace to go, and whether I want to have blue beads in between each of my little fish segments, or if I want one of these. I think I'm going to be doing these. If I'm real honest, I'm really feeling these with it. So let's cut that little strand. Get some of these off of here. I might choose some of the more red ones just for this center part. More orangey red between each of these. Oh, that's a nice dark red to separate our fins. This one's about half and half. I like that. Oh yes, there we go. So we've got these guys all along like that. And which of these beads are going to be the best? All right, maybe aqua on either side. And then a couple of clear ones. And then the two-tone beads like that. And then one of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's 5 on each side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I gotta figure out how I want these to be strung. I think I'm feeling different colors of these beads, so maybe a light blue and maybe a metallic guy here. So they're not all the same color of blue or not in any real patterns. I like that. I'm gonna stick with that mix feeling. Yes, I like that idea. We're just gonna keep going all the way up. More aqua, darker, and then opaque, semi-opaque, and then just dark crystal, and then darker aqua, something like that. And then I can just repeat and alternate between these guys or something for the rest of the necklace. Yes, I think I like that. For closure, what I want to do is make kind of a fish hook with this 18 gauge wire. So when we get there, I'm going to use that. Also, in addition to the other tools that I have some flush cutters that will cut wire for me. I think what I want to do is just string on half of it without cutting my wire. So I'm going to just start from over here and just start stringing. Well, it's half, but it includes this middle portion here. So I'm just going to start from this end. Start stringing these guys on here. I'm wondering if I should grab some seed beads or something. That might help pad out some of the spaces in here. Let's see how I feel about this once it's strung up. Let's see if I need to add more differentiation between these 4mm bicones and the 4mm gemstones. Because having something that's a little bit different of a size with that might actually be a good idea. Oop. Looks like I've got a little bit of trouble here with this hole. There we go. I have cleared the hole. There we go. Got my wire through that. You should be okay. But yeah, I had brought this bunch of beads out during my live this last weekend because I wanted everyone to help me choose which little bundles of beads that I had put together from some of my purchases I was going to create with during my live. And my fuchsia and bright blue bundle won out of all of them. This was a close second, and it was one that I was really leaning towards in my heart. So I did promise my friends who were with me on the live that I would make a video where I created a necklace using these guys. I love this. I love that. How fun is it? And the fact that, like, you can have him wiggle and wriggle while that's moving. This is really cool. This makes me happy. If I did grab some seed beads or something to go between some of these beads, I'm wondering what color I would use. Dark blue? Maybe crystal? Clear? Silver lined? Maybe silver lined. That might be nice. Or maybe a matte color that's more sea glassy. I'd have to look around and see what I've got that would go with it. I think the hole on this got drilled the wrong way. You can see that hole goes through the side. I'm going to set that bicone aside. That was a fun little thing that happened there. Alright. Let me check on how far this goes, because I don't think this is going to be long enough. And I think I really am feeling like maybe adding some seed beads or 2mm beads or something smaller in between these two different types of 4mm beads. It might separate them more or better in between. So I'm just going to put my hand on my beads and pull my wire out so that my beads don't get separated. I'm going to go take a peek at what kind of beads I have to hand for adding to this. So I've got some bead mixes, I've got some tubes of beads. I do have some. Actually, I think this might be a really good one. This was, I think, the Winter Cabin bead mix from Sam's Bead Shop. But it has these like dark, warm tone Ado seed beads in there that it already goes really well with blue. So either those or these light AB finish seed beads, these ones that would probably look a little bit like bubbles underwater if I added them to this. So I'm just going to real quick see which one of these I like better with these beads. And then we'll make our decision from there. Just grabbing a piece of scrap wire. And I'm just going to put these guys on. See how that kind of separates them more. So they, instead of just being something that runs together and doesn't seem to make sense. So I'm really liking this. Let me try with these darker beads because I feel like it's going to give me a different kind of a vibe. And I might be here for it. Let's see. So this is exhibit B of why getting a bead mix can be really fun and a good idea, is because then even if you get it to use with something else, if you still have beads left over, you can use it somewhere else. And while I'm feeling like it's calling out the warm tones a little bit with this, I'm not as into the look of it as I am with those light AB crystal seed beads. So let's move these guys back over here. And let's start separating out these clear guys, because they are definitely going into this necklace. Because I was feeling it. And these are 8/0 seed beads that I'm using. If I did not mention the size before, I forget whether I mentioned it or not. Sometimes I repeat myself because I forget that I mentioned something, and sometimes I think I mentioned something and I didn't actually do it. And then that's when my friends leave me a little comment asking me for some basic information that I should have shared in the video, but I forgot to mention. So ahead of time, thank you for your grace with my forgetfulness. It is appreciated. All right, I will get more out when I need it. I've got a little pile of these right there. I'm going to start stringing. The question is, no, I don't think I'm going to have them in between my fishes, my fish segments. I think it's just going to be in between all these other bits. It's going to be very oceany. Because, you know, that's where fish live. Some of them. Yeah, I love those in there. Okay, so these are still going to be exactly the same order because I'm not inserting the seed beads in here. They are only being separated by these gemstone beads. Yeah, sometimes blue and orange can look great together, I think. This is coming from someone who isn't even an orange fan. Here we go. Yes, I am feeling that. That is absolutely appropriate. I already got that on there. Let's just string the rest of these. And this is just one side of my necklace. I am going to have to string the other side up. That shouldn't be a problem though. This is turning into a very fun project. I have no idea why. My phone is having trouble with focusing while I'm recording this. I think one of the best things about using this turquoise colored wire is that now there's a little bit of a blue that pops through with these clear beads in the way. Alright, I'm going to just check my length and see how much longer I need to carry this this beading pattern up the side, because I would just continue with the gemstones and bicones and seed beads if that's where I'm going with it. I think just a little bit more actually, and then it'll be long enough for me. I am a short necklaces kind of a gal. So let's grab, oh, I like that one. That, this, that one, this, that, this, and one more. Alright. Now I think I will go ahead and make a loop on this end with my crimp. That way these beads won't fly off anywhere. And I'm not going to be adjusting anything to do with this side at all. So I don't need to use a bead stopper to hold on to that. So let's get a crimp out and my crimper. And I'm just going to make a loop because I'll be making my own clasp at the end of this, and if I need to use jump rings to attach it, I can do that. So I've got my wire here on the end, put on my crimp tube, bend my wire back through my crimp tube, and I'm just going to slide this up near the end because this is my first crimp and we've got plenty of room over here with the others. I don't need to scooch the beads up through it or put this through. I can do that later if I do that at all. I just want to make sure that we don't have our wires twisted. And if you haven't seen the magical crimper before, it has a little indentation in there. It's on both sides of it. It works best on 0.018 and 0.019 wire, and it only works with 2mm by 2mm crimp tubes. So I'm using soft flex ones because they are some of the best. And this is soft flex wire too. And I just want to center the crimp. I haven't squozen down on it yet. I just want to make sure it's right there in that divot. Give it a smush and see how it just kind of like squishes down the corners of those crimps. If I turn this to like a right angle from there, give it another smush, turn it, make sure it's centered, turn and smush, and just keep going at it from different angles. Open, turn, close. Open, turn, close. Then after I have gone around a few times, it smoothed out those like sharp edges that happened, the little ravioli edges. And now I just have my crimps there. I'm just going to slide those two on top, and it gives you a nice ball of crimp there too, so it doesn't look weird. I don't need to add a crimp cover. It is my favorite way of crimping because of that. Alright, so now I've got those moved up here. Let's scooch back out. And I'm going to want to cut some of this wire so that I can continue the stringing on the other side of this. Look at that curve on them. That is so cool. I love that. So I'm just going to do the same order for stringing on this side. And if you'd like to skip to the end, go ahead. I will put a link, a timestamp in the description that can take you directly to finishing up the necklace so that you don't have to watch me string the entire thing if you're just not interested in that. But if you would like to hang out with me while I do this, you are more than welcome to. I like having company while I'm making things, which is why I talk to you guys. That is why I talk to y'all. And I do know that I have friends who appreciate the longer videos where I am not skipping past to from beginning to finish so that they can just spend some time with me. And I appreciate y'all. Alright, I'm going to need to get some more of these clear seed beads out of that tube. So let me get this last one on here. And another one of these guys. Alright. Let's move that to the side. And again, we're still just taking our time with this. Sometimes it's more about the process of making things than it is about necessarily the end result. I do love having a nice end result though, if I'm going to be real honest. It's always so nice to have something in your hands that you created, to be able to look at it and admire it and be like, I made that. It is one of my favorite things, and one of my favorite things about doing this type of project. But I do also really enjoy the process of it. The design process, the figuring out if these beads will work with those beads or that sort of thing. So hopefully you guys appreciate that too. I think that should be enough. I'm just going to move some of these guys out of the way. I'll clean those up in just a little bit. I am loving this though. This is such a great project. So thank you to everyone who agreed that they wanted to see this, because it was the impetus that I needed to sit down and create with it today. Where are we at? Let's do one of these ones. Yes, I need that one. It's like, I think I just did that one wrong, but I didn't. I did that one just right after all. Alright. My little swimmy guy's taking shape. What should we name my fish? And don't forget, I've got my big fish, and I've got my little fish too, so I'm going to need names for them as well. I'm thinking of naming this one Edgar. I think that would be a good Edgar. Not sure about the earring ones though. I need to put them together first, and then their personalities will speak to me. And I'll be able to decide on a name for them then. So my Edgar is a proper fish. Absolutely proper. So 2 more gemstones and 2 more bicones is what I need to finish this end. So there we go. Oh yeah, let's get one of these gray ones in here. I like these gray ones. Go. Perfect. Alright, I'm going to make another loop on this end. when you go to make a loop on the other end of a necklace or a bracelet or something, you want to take up some of the slack in your stringing by curving your item. That way it won't be crimped too tight, because if you crimp things too tight, it can cause strain on the crimp and on the necklace and on some of the beads even. So crimping it so it's not too tight is a good idea. And giving the curve allows it to have a proper amount of grace on there. Okay, and that's not going to go through that twice. So I'm going to be snipping this close to the bead, which is perfectly fine. These are good crimps. And the method of crimping means that it doesn't actually have to have that extra piece of wire going through the next bead. What I do want to make sure I do on this end is, see how it's right next to the bead right there? This guy? What I want to do is kind of wiggle my fingernail in between the bead and the crimp to give it some space, because that space means the sides of my crimper can fit around it and get it properly centered when I do my crimp. Now that that's crimped, I can go ahead and snip my excess wire. And I've got my 2 loops here that we can do. See how that's a nice slinky necklace, my little fishy guy. So we can add some, what are they called? There was a whole word that I've just completely forgotten just now. I don't know if you guys do this, where you've got like a word, you know the word, it's a simple word, but you can't remember the word. Clasp. That's the word. Let's make our clasps. Let me move some of these guys out of the way so that my camera isn't confused by all of the things on my mat. And we'll make a little clasp. Okay. I'm going to be using some 18 gauge wire. I'm using the silver plated pewter because it is a good color match for the metals in this. It's not bright silver, these are antique silver. There we go. Got a little bit of a curve down there at the end. It isn't going to come out easily. But I want to warm up my wire a little bit first before we do anything else. And I'm going to make myself a loop that's going to be one end of my clasp. That loop is going to be a wrapped loop right there on the end. So I'm going to, about a couple of inches down from the end of my wire, I'm going to take my round nose pliers, and because this is going to be the loop that the fish hook part goes into, I'm going to make it kind of a larger loop than if it was a loop for a like a necklace that I was doing a chain link on. So I'm going to move down close to the handle on my round nose pliers so I get a bigger loop, because further away you get smaller loops, closer in you get bigger loops. I'm just going to bend that back, the wire away from me. See how it's bent there? And then use my finger to push that wire up over my round nose pliers. I'm going to open the jaw of my round nose pliers, rotate it out of the way, push with my thumb so it crosses over there. Now I've got a little loop here. Just going to hang on to that with my pliers. You can either use your fingers to wrap this around or another set of pliers. Let me see where my other set of pliers are. Just to get that wire wrapped around that neck a little bit more. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and snip that off to make it a little easier for me to do this. That'll be enough for me. And I think I want to put a little bead on this end of my clasp. So let's take one of my, let's see if these gemstones will fit on 18 gauge wire first of all. They do. They go right there on the wire. Boy, it's crazy. Alright, now I need to do another loop on this end. So I'm going to just grasp the wire right above where my bead is, push this over the top so there's some room for wrapping under here. And then for this one, it doesn't need to be a large loop. This is the loop that the clasp will go into. This will be the loop that it's attached to my necklace with. I'm going to do the same thing where I'm pushing the wire over the top, rotating my pliers, and then pulling it all the way around. And then using either my fingers or another set of pliers, wrap it around there. I don't want to wrap it too tight so that because I don't want to break the gemstone. So I'm going to stop before I start feeling some resistance from that gemstone. But I do need to just tighten that up a little bit. Just tuck that in, that end. So now I've got one end of my clasp working. I'm really annoyed at no autofocus going. That's not pleasant, but that's okay. That is okay, because we can get, that's 20, I need my 18 gauge. Okay, so for this one, I'm just warming up my wire with my fingers. It also works out some of the kinks if I can bend it around my finger in one direction and then around my thumb in the other. There we go. Now, from this end, I'm going to use my round nose pliers and start my little hook. So it is flush cut already. I made sure of that. And I'm going to hold it right here at the very tip of my round nose pliers. I'm just going to make a little loop like that. And then a bit further down, I'm going to give myself a little bit of space away from that loop. And then I'm going to bend my wire around one of the fat parts of my pliers so that it does a little loop like that. And I'm going to cut about 3 inches away from the bottom of that loop, or 2.5 if I'm estimating right. And this little hook part here, I'm going to want to work harden. You can do that with a bench block and hammer, or You can give it a healthy smush with your pliers. I do give it a really good squeeze there. I just want that curved part to stay curved. I can narrow it a little bit if I need to. Alright, now I want to make sure that it's not going to slip off. So I'm just going to grasp my wire here. Start bringing this around. Go. That's going to make a little stopper area so that it'll help the clasp not slip off as easily. Like that. And this should be a wrapped loop, but I'm not going to use a wrapped loop because I have run out of space. What I am going to do is make a simple loop. So right here next to this stopper bit, I'm going to use my pliers to bend this to the right. And I'm going to measure along my finger from there to the point where my fingernail, the end of my fingernail is. I know from experience that this is about 1 centimeter. You might not have giant peasant fingers like I do. You might have a different part of your finger that measures that much or that way. But I know from experience that that's what I've got. So I'm going to just snip off my wire. And then use my round nose pliers to roll that up into a loop. And this is 18 gauge wire, so it will hold that. It's not going to be sliding off or coming loose or anything like that. There we go. And I also work hard in that loop as well. So now I've got my little hook, my little loop. I'm going to attach it to my necklace. With some jump rings. Probably won't need jump rings for that one, but I'm going to use them anyway. So let's do my hook on this end. My loop on the other. Alright, and there is my little fishy necklace. A little fish hook for a clasp. And I love it. I'm going to make some earrings now. Let me move this out of the way and get these guys out. Okay, for the earrings, I am going to still have some little bits in between my segments here. The question is, am I going to use these 8mm seed beads, or am I going to go ahead and use my gemstone strands, which I just realized that's what fell off my desk, my gemstone strands. Excuse me. Found them. Oh, I found some of them. The rest of them fell off the strand when it fell. So I'm just going to get them off of here. So I can use them otherwise. Let's do a couple of these that are sort of more orangey. There aren't that many that were more orangey. I did want a few of them. Alright, now let's put these guys together. I've got a fish tail and a fish tail. It's a puzzle, guys. And then I've got my head and a head. We have two fin ends. We have two tail segments. There we go. And there's the long fin part. Long fin part. And this bit that's right next to the head. There we go. Boop. All right. And now for these, I'm going to also be using stringing wire, or beading wire. I am not going to be using head pins, but I am going to turn this into a head pin. So let's get about, let's say that's, yeah, let's just do about 4 inches of wire. That should give me plenty of room to maneuver with on that. I'm going to grab a crimp and we're going to turn this wire into a head pin. There are a couple ways that you can do that. One is by adding extra bits of wire when you go to crimp the end, or just do a loop and then snip the loop off, then you'll have a little crimp at the end. I think that's what I'm going to do. Is that I'm going to take this guy all the way through here. I mean, I do have a little end of wire that I could put through there like that, but I've already got my crimp on here, right on the end of this wire. So let's go ahead and crimp it. So now I've got my little ball here on the end of my wire. I can take my flush cutters and cut right next to the crimp, right there. And then take my little excess piece of wire here, sticking out. And now I have a little ball head pin made with beading wire. So let's put the head on first. So it's just right there at the very end. And then one of these. I'm just going to keep adding these little guys as I work my way up my little fishy. And this way we'll have some movement on this earring. It won't be stiff like it is on a metal head pin. this guy on here. This one. That. Here we are at the end. But is it the end? I don't know. How about if I take this bicone and this right there at the end. And now I want to crimp myself a loop that I can attach to an ear wire. So another crimp. Okay, I don't need all of that going through there. So I think that that is enough of a loop. Let's go ahead and crimp that. Make sure that I've got a little bit of space between my crimp and my seed bead. So we can get it centered. Right. Here's my little fishy. Here's my ear wire. Alright, and if you'd like to skip past me making my second fish, go right ahead. I'm not going to be offended if you skip past. There will be a link in the description for the timestamp to move on to the bracelet. But I am going to go ahead and make that second earring right now. I love how he curves. I love that. That makes me really happy that using the beading wire has worked out exactly like I thought it would. But now I'll show you how to do it with just a piece of excess wire instead of bending it back into a loop, if you would like. So we can do two different options. I'm just making sure I have enough wire. There we go. So now I've got my little excess pieces of wire here that were left over. So what I can do with this is go ahead and stick both of these ends of wire in there, so they're like right next to each other. Okay. There we go, so I've got both of those ends of the wire in there. That one is flopping around. Let me try and pinch it a little bit better with my fingers while I'm doing that. There we go. Now I've got them both. I can actually move my crimp much closer to the end of that wire than it was before. It's not completely to the end, so I am still going to need to do that, and that was not completely centered either. Let's see if this can still work, even if I didn't center it completely for my first squeeze. It may not be the prettiest crimp. Oh, nope, it is. Not the prettiest. It is a little bit crumpled, but that's because I did not get it centered on that first one, but I don't think it's going to impact anything. You can see how strong that is. That's a very good crimp. It's very tiny. Nobody's gonna know. Go. And now I can start stringing my little fishy on here. Bobbing along on the beautiful briny sea. What a chance to get a better peep at the plants and creatures of the deep. Name that tune, my friends. Name that tune. I love my little curvy fish guy. Alright, now let's get a bicone so we can do seed bead, bicone, seed bead, and then I can make another little loop, attach my earrings. And this will be my earrings for my challenge that I have challenged myself for the month of April. I challenged myself to make a pair of earrings every day. And this will be my earrings for today, the 8th of April. So if you're watching this on the 9th, this is my 8th pair. Let's get a loop. I just want to make sure my loops are about the same size. They are. So this one curves that way towards that way. So I want this one to curve the other way. So that's the way I should add it to my let's put it on that way. This way they will curve in different directions when they are being worn. Love my little fishies. Love my little fishies. Alright, let's get my fishy beads out. I'm going to move my earrings out of the way. Well, let's make a little bracelet. Alright, for this one, I am definitely going to be needing my seed beads, needing some of these. We're just going to have all of these between my little goldfish fishies. One Halloween I dressed up as Darla from Finding Nemo. It was one of my best costumes ever. I got a rock and roll girl sweatshirt, bought some fake headgear to wear on my face. And it was at a time when I had short, like, peach colored hair, like the bright orangey red. And so I was able to put it into little pigtails. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So let's get some beading wire. Fishies. That's what I think of when I say fishies. So I think of Darla from Finding Nemo. So I am just going to be stringing these on. Still using that same beading pattern that I used on the necklace, but instead of like the fish beads or instead of the swirly beads in between them, it's going to be my little goldfishes. So this is going to be fantastic. Yeah, I apologize if you guys hear some loud talking in the other room. They are having a conversation right outside my door. You know what? That is okay with me, because it just means that the people in my house like to talk to each other. They like to have conversations, and I hope it doesn't bother any of y'all to hear family people talking to each other. Oh, you know what? I have an extra gemstone in this lineup here. Might not necessarily be a bad thing, but I may need it on the other side more. And does this have a weird hole? No, it doesn't have a weird hole. Yeah, that one's just fine. Ooh, I kind of like this one too. Why am I picking up so many extra gemstones? What is wrong with me? I need this one next. That's right. Hopefully my friends were watching and were able to let me know so I could hear you through the magic of the internet. Yep, I'm into that. I'm going to get this strung on, and then I'm going to check the size on my bracelet mandrel. See if it is long enough or too long. It's entirely possible that it's too long, and I'll need to adjust the sizing along the edges or ends. Okay. Now, these guys, and a dark one. There we go. That'll work. Oop, I need 1, 2. Buckle my shoe. Counting with Beki. Now, I may have gotten enough for a bracelet of these guys out without having to like get even more of them. So let's get our mandrel out. We'll see what that is. This is a bracelet mandrel that I was sent from Amy Campbell. She has made some, and I know some of our mutual friends have gotten some. And I think I am just a little bit short on that. But should I do a clasp that takes up that much space? I think the answer to that is going to be yes. I'm going to do the same kind of clasp that I did with the other. And we are going to have that be the amount of space that it needs to have. I need a crimp on each end of this. And then we'll do some wire work and we'll make a clasp just like we did the other. And attach it with some jump rings. How about that? That'll be a whole jewelry set using these beads that I got on sale from Bead Box Bargains. They really are cool though, the fish beads. Super cute. So I got my... Don't cut the loop. I was just holding it gently so I could do that. Alright. Cut off enough for crimping on that end. And then we will do some wire working. Again, you want to take up that slack by curving it. I should say it adds slack to the bracelet, but it takes it up for the crimping part. There you go. So now I've got my loops created. I'm going to move this out of the way and start creating my clasp. I'm going to need my round nose pliers and my 18 gauge wire for that. Okay. Straighten this sucker out. And we're going to do a wrapped loop that is larger, so we're going to wrap closer to the handles on my round nose pliers. Use fingers or another set of pliers to wrap that around. If I have the leverage, it is so much faster for me to use my fingers for it. But I don't always have the leverage. And then a little bit further down, let me add one of these guys. I think I want this one because he's really cool looking. There we go. Then we're going to hold on to our wire right above that, bend it back, and then make a smaller loop. So I'm going to have my loop formed closer to the tip of my round nose pliers. Right. And we're going to stop short before we break the gemstone. Give that a smush to flatten it. And I've got my loop. Now let's make our hook. With the end of this wire, twist it around, and then a little bit further in. Sorry, to readjust my grip. Bend that down there. And give myself a little bit extra room there. And then right here, wrap that wire around that bit of myself and work harden my loops. Give it a little smush, a little smushy poo. Smooch that in. And I can do a wrapped loop here, but I think I'm going to try and keep it consistent and just bend this back. Cut that off, consistent with the hook that I made for the necklace. And then do a simple loop by just rolling that wire back up until it meets there. Give that a smush. And I've got my hook, by hook or by crook. And that's going to add enough space between each side of this bracelet for it to fit around my wrist. Let's find out if I'm correct. Grab some jump rings and do the attachy-tatchy thing. By opening and closing these guys with my here we are. I think I may have done it. By Jove. Let me grab that bracelet mandrel now. I may have given myself a little extra space. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I do like, sometimes I do like a nice bracelet that is not too tight. Something that I can, also I need to be able to maneuver the hook too, so that I can get it on there, and if it's too tight I wouldn't be able to even get it clasped. That way I can move it further down my wrist or push it up and add some more here so I can stack some bracelets. So having it not be super tight is a good thing very often, but it is very, very pretty. And then I've got my earrings. Let's wrap her up. And then I've got my fish necklace. There we go. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll put a link to Bead Box Bargains and to Soft Flex, since I used their wire and crimps for this, in the description below. And Bead Box Bargains is a great place, a great source for closeout check glass beads, some cool components like this, some other great things. They put together bundles, and if you're a subscriber to Bargain Bead Box, you get 30% off their already discounted prices. So I'll put a link to that as well, and I hope y'all are having a fantastic week. Until next time, happy beading.